Mr. Rimpy Arora, tell us a little bit about yourself. I see you have your PhD in disability studies and more. You're a
Yes.
professor. Tell us quickly what your background is.
Actually, I have done my PhD in public administration, but I am specialized in disability studies. And I am a president of Positive Ability Rotary Club and honorary member of Rotary World Disability Advocacy Group as well. So, being a person with disability, I'm passionate enough to contribute towards the welfare of disability community. So, I'm working towards them.
Right. Excellent. Excellent. Well, are your panelists in the room?
Yes, they are in the room.
Excellent. Well, I'm not going to steal your thunder. It's up to you to introduce your panelists. The topic, ladies and gentlemen, is empowering inclusive education teachers. So I'm going to I'll stay here on the stage, but I'll close my camera and I'll mute myself and I shall listen with interest. Thank you so much. Take it away, Rimpy.
Thank you, Jami, for the warm introduction and the warm discussion. So it's truly an honor to be here today as we explore the important topic of empowering teachers in inclusive education. And I am delighted to introduce our esteemed panelists. I hope they are in now. So to start with that, I am pleased to introduce our first panelist, Dr. Shobha N. Odunavar from India. She has on the floor? Okay. She has over 15 years of expertise in special education and rehabilitation. Dr. Shobha brings a wealth of experience to our discussion. She earned her PhD degree from the University of Mysore, focusing on hearing impairment and multiple disabilities. Throughout her career, she has held significant role, including lecturer and consultant at the reputed Institute of India, like All India Institute of Speech and Hearing in Mysore, and National Institute of Empowerment of Persons with Disability in Chennai. Additionally, she served as a program officer for CBM India Trust. She has also presented research paper at national and international conferences on the topic related to inclusive education and assistive technology. Dr. Shobha's expertise in inclusive education and her contribution to rehabilitation makes her a prominent figure in the field of disability studies. So welcome, Dr. Shobha, and thank you for joining us today in this session.
Thank you.
Thank you. Following Dr. Shobha's insight, it's an honor to welcome our next panelist, Ms. Nafiza H. Isa from Cameroon, a dedicated special educator and disability advocate. Ms. Nafiza has committed herself to empowering individuals with disabilities and advancing inclusive education. Drawing from her own experience as an indigenous woman, she works tirelessly to dismantle barriers and create accessible opportunity. Her works continue to drive impact change, advocating for the rights and representation of marginalized community. So welcome, Nafiza. I warmly welcome you to this panel discussion.
Thank you, Doctor.
Moving forward, I am pleased to introduce our next panelist, Ms. Sonia Rajvans, an educated education expert with over 15 years of experience in community service learning, youth empowerment, and curriculum development. As the National Head of Education for the Sikh Council Kenya, she is actively involved in various educational projects for both regular and special needs curriculum. Additionally, she is as the Secretary of Rotary Club World Disability Advocacy. Sonia plays a key role in promoting inclusive education initiatives. She is also a forerunner in holistic education, emphasizing emotional and spiritual development through her teacher training program. Her expertise will be invaluable to our discussion. So welcome, Sonia. I invite you on the floor.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Now, as we round out our panel, I am pleased to introduce our final panelist, Ms. Thais Martins, advocacy coordinator at Mais Difference. Mais Difference means it is More Difference is an organization in Brazil. Thais also hold a bachelor degree in public policy management from USP and master degree in public policy from UFABC. With over 12 years of experience in the management, research, monitoring, and evaluation of inclusive projects and policies in Brazil, she has made significant contribution to the field. As an advocacy coordinator and trainer, Thais focus on inclusion and the rights of persons with disability. She is also working with education and cultural professionals, and she is also a co-author of several publications on the rights of the people with disabilities. We are grateful for her presence in this panel discussion, as her insights will greatly enhance our understanding of inclusive education practices in Brazil. So thank you, Thais, for joining us today. Please join the floor.
Thank you.
I welcome you all for the discussion on the important topic, that is empowering teachers in inclusive educations. So welcome you all.
Thank you.
With all our panelists introduced, let's move into our discussion. And I encourage each of you to share your thoughts on how we can effectively empower teachers in inclusive education. So beginning with this discussion with Dr. Shobha, I would like to ask you, Dr. Shobha.
Yes.
I would like to ask you, ma'am, what does empowerment mean for teachers in inclusive education from your perspective, and how can we measure the success with global context? Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you for having me here in this discussion. So, if you ask me how to empower teachers in inclusive classroom, there are certain areas we need to consider. First and foremost, positive attitude towards children with disabilities, one of the important aspect where our teachers should know. They should take a positive attitude to bring children into a classroom, accepting them as one of the learners in the inclusive classroom is one of the main thing where teachers has to develop it. Along with that, understanding the nature and needs of disabilities is second most important area where empowerment is needed. If we know what is the nature of the disability, and if we know what are the needs of the children with disabilities in the mainstream classroom, that increases the empowerment of teachers in the general classroom. Next, if you ask me, there are certain skills and there is such knowledge as a teacher in the general classroom we need to develop. So skills need to be developed by the teacher and integrating the advanced technology into our day-to-day practices. That becomes one of the important points for empowerment, and also a strong relationship between the stakeholders. There are different types of stakeholders involved in uh, successfully integrating or mainstreaming children with disabilities. Relationship between the stakeholder is again one of the important area where as a teacher need to be for themselves. And finally, if you ask me to tell, there are supportive policies need to be placed, and we as a teacher should aware of the policies to support the education of children with disabilities into the general classroom. These are all the areas need to be added in the empowerment of teachers into the mainstream classroom or in the inclusive classroom. Dr. Ruby.
Thank you. Ms. Nafisa.
Yes, doctor, I'm here.
Yeah. So it's over to you.
Okay, doctor, thank you for this opportunity. I'll be talking about how can teachers foster meaningful engagement with families of children with disabilities to create a supportive homeschool partnership. Now, we need to know that in order for us to create such meaningful relationships, we need to engage both the parents and the school authorities, including the special needs teachers, the regular teachers, and other school authorities to attain a meaningful relationship. Now, in order for us to do that, there are some strategies that we can work on. I'll start by talking about communication strategies. With communication, I would say that teachers should give up-to-date information regarding the child with disability to the parents. The parents too should also provide information concerning the child and things that are happening with the child from home. We should also encourage parent-teacher meetings where parents and teachers come together to discuss on the strengths and weaknesses of the learners. They should come together in order for us to monitor the progress of the learners. We should encourage an open communication between the teachers and the parents, that's the family of the learners. Also, we can keep families informed by providing them with regular feedback concerning the progress of the learner in school. Now, moving on to the collaborative strategies, we can encourage parental involvement in goal setting. This process should not be carried out by the teacher alone. We can also foster a sense of community through events and activism. For instance, school can organize activities and invite families of children with disabilities to take part in these activities. Also, we can co-develop an individualized education plan. This is very important in the education of learners with disabilities. Parents and teachers to work together to come up with an individualized education plan for the learner with disability. Moving on to the empowerment and support, know that in a context here in Cameroon, most parents are knowledgeable on how to handle their kids back at home. They lack knowledge. So I believe that organizing workshops and trainings will help improve on their involvement when it comes to their children with disabilities. Also, would encourage the parents to be advocates for their children. We should instill in them those skills and knowledge that they can use to be the first advocate for their child. We all know that in a context like Cameroon, we find parents not advocate, support them for them to be able to advocate for their children. Facilitating common needs educators, I think we can best foster the working of persons with disabilities. Also, we can organize parent-teacher student conference. This conference share the learners where we tend to discuss on way forward on how to improve on the student achievement. Moving on to family, school, community partnerships, a community where we have learners with disabilities, I think it is of utmost importance that the families and the school come together to see how they can foster inclusive education, how they can empower these teachers to handle their learners with special needs. Now, we can also talk about collaborative problem solving. With this, when a teacher faces a problem concerning a learner with special needs, you don't have to do it all alone. You need to involve others. We all know that handling learners with special needs demands professional support and also support from the families. So in case you're facing a difficulty handling a learner, you should be open enough to share the. I believe that if we jointly solve a problem, then we are going to better come out with a solution for that problem.
Thank you, Nafisa.
Also, we can
Thank
talk
you,
about
Nafisa.
parent mentor programs. We need to mentor these parents. We need to.
Thank you, Nafisa, for your that enlightened things
Thank
that,
you.
yeah, your voice is also breaking in between. So I would like to move on, Miss Sonia. Sonia, would you like to mention that what does empowerment mean for teachers in inclusive education from your perspective? And how can we measure within the global context?
Thank you. For me, empowerment is like, it is not something that can be given directly to a teacher. It's something that they also have to receive when they are in their classrooms. What I'm trying to say is that you may have a teacher who's very passionate to work in an inclusive education environment, but if the environment is not conducive for inclusivity, then the teacher finds it very difficult to give results. So to me, empowerment for teachers means giving them a thriving ecosystem. An ecosystem to me means that in that inclusive environment, we have children of different abilities, different needs, different growth spurts, for example. And the teacher is then able to work with them together and still have harmony in their class. So when the ecosystem is thriving, the teacher is empowered because the teacher can actually make the changes or bring in the kind of learning that they need to bring to the children. Now, the measure of success for me is adaptability of the teacher in that ecosystem when a change is introduced. Change is one of the hardest things to deal with. We all know that in management as well. And being a teacher is not just about imparting knowledge. It's also about having the power to make certain decisions that are better for the class and for their own professional, growth. Let me put it that way. So I measure success when a change has been brought in, a child with a different ability, a child who has probably had different challenges from what they are also used to do with their old students or previous students or current students, whichever way. How quickly does the teacher adapt to that? That is my measure of success. Thank you.
Thank you, Sonia. Over to you, Thais Martin.
Hi, thank you. So for me, empowerment for teachers in inclusive education contexts means valuing their pedagogical expertise. In many discussions on inclusive education, other fields of knowledge often receive more attention, and teachers may feel that they do not have the tools to educate all the learners. So I think it's crucial to prioritize their knowledge and skills as teachers. Paulo Freire, which is a Brazilian very famous pedagogue and educator, says that whoever teaches learns in the act of teaching, and whoever learns teaches in the act of learning. So I think this is something important for us to reflect on. Teachers, they may have not have all the tools for that moment, for that inclusive context, but they also learn while they are teaching. And in this relationship, an inclusive context is made. So success in an inclusive system, for me, in my perspective and experience, is the success can be measured when teachers feel that they are valued and recognized for their contributions as pedagogical experts, and when they are then equipped and to effectively teach all the students.
Thank you. Thank you all for your thoughtful insight on what empowerment means for teachers in inclusive education and how can we measure with this within this global context. Each of you has highlighted the multifaceted nature of empowerment from ongoing professional development, collaboration to valuing teacher expertise, fostering supportive environment, and like Thais Martin mentioned that teachers must be valued and they should be recognized and pedagogical expertise are recognized. So as we know that like in today's time, we know that every country has its own policy and it is grounded in the principle of that is documented in the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disability. So in response to UN Convention, many countries have enacted various laws to support this vision. So with this in mind, I would like to turn to you again, Ms. Thais Martin, that would you like to share that what kind of the key policies that have significantly empowered teachers to effectively deliver inclusive education and which is the best practice in Brazil?
So there are some key policies in Brazil that empower teachers. We are always saying here in Brazil how our legal framework on inclusive education is really solid, and what we have to work now is on how to implement it effectively. The key policy, the most important policy I would highlight is the National Policy on Special Education from the perspective of inclusive education. It has this long name. This policy emphasizes that inclusive education is a human rights-based approach, combining equality and diversity as interconnected values. It acknowledges that the challenges in education systems reveal the need to confront discriminatory practices and create alternative solutions because it regards the historical contexts that have contributed to exclusion, to segregation. And this national policy also says that this change in the education systems requires structural and cultural changes in schools to accommodate the specific needs of all students, ensuring that everyone is participating, belonging, feeling valued and recognized. Currently in Brazil, there are over 1,700,000 students with disabilities enrolled in schools, and 91% of them are attending mainstream education in common schools. So the key policy I would highlight is the national policy, this one, which is based, of course, in the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. And following that policy, a lot of other programs and public policies were developed to implement it correctly, effectively. And as a best practice, I would highlight the specialized educational services, what we call here in
Services.
Yes, we call here in Brazil AEE.
Okay.
The AEE is a service that provides additional support to students with disabilities which are enrolled in mainstream regular classrooms, and in the other shift that they are going to school. So they can provide additional support by offering accessible resources, tailored pedagogical strategies. They collaborate with the common classroom teacher, and then the students receive individual or group attention in this context, along with accessible materials and assistive technologies to complement or supplement their curricular learning in the mainstream schools. So AEE for me is a model that can be shared with others because it doesn't separate the students from their peers in the mainstream classroom. Instead, it supplements while promoting their full participation in the schools, focusing on universal design and also ensuring that they all have equitable opportunities to learn and succeed.
Thank you. Thank you, guys, for shedding light on how inclusive education is defined and implemented in Brazil. It's inspiring to see how policies like National Policy on Special Education and the Specialized Educational Services, AEE, are creating pathways for students with disability to thrive in mainstream setting. So I believe like country like Kenya, Cameroon, and South Africa, like the panelists, those who are here also, that countries are also not an exception in this journey towards inclusivity. And in India, the government of India has also enacted various laws such as Rights of Persons with Disability Act and National Policy on Education. And this policy aimed at fostering inclusive education, but the challenge is still there, and that remain, which not helps in implementing it in mainstream. So in this context, I would turn to Dr. Shobha. So, Dr. Shobha, could you share your insight on the current challenges educators face in implementing inclusive education? And additionally, what innovative practice can be adopted to promote inclusive education in regular teacher training program? Over to you, Dr. Shobha.
As you rightly mentioned, we have policies to support inclusive education, but we have a lot of challenges also when it comes to teachers to practice inclusive education in the classroom. Challenges as we started with empowering the teachers in certain areas, those areas become the challenge for us to implement the inclusive education in a successful way. What are the challenges if you ask? First and foremost is, I can say, attitudinal barrier is one of the challenges. Still, we have a barrier in our attitude telling that is this child can learn in the inclusive classroom? He needs special education support. He should be there in the special classroom like that. Still, we are hearing in this developed stage also, many teachers is showing the barrier in their attitude. That becomes again, I can say that one of the biggest barrier or the foremost barrier to bring a child in the inclusive classroom. And we have a lack of training for the teachers in terms of inclusive education. Teachers are well skilled, as the Thaisia is mentioning, like we have a pedagogical strong based teachers in the inclusive classroom. But when you see that inclusiveness of the children with special needs or children with disabilities, regarding that, training needs to be provided. There is a lack of training, I would say, and along with that, inadequate of resources. There is no adequate resources we are finding in the inclusive classroom to support children with variety of disability. If you see, our RPWD Act has identified in India 21 disabilities. If I need to bring 21 disabilities into a mainstream classroom, it's quite challenging in terms of resource to be provided to bring the inclusive classroom, accessible classroom for each and every child with disability. That becomes the biggest challenge to make an inclusive success. And a overcrowded classroom is one of the challenge for a teacher to work on a day-to-day basis. If you see our Indian classrooms, strength of the classroom is in a very big number. Within that number, to focus on a child with special need or child with disability, that becomes again one of the challenge for a teacher to bring these children into a mainstream classroom. Along with that, as we are telling that we have a RPWD Act in India in terms of Indian perspective, you ask, and we are following UNCRPD and we have new national policy with us, but still there are more policy support need to be provided. Support from this policy is one of the challenge for us to maintain the inclusive classroom or bring the successful education into the mainstream classroom. If you ask me what are the innovative practices for teacher training, in-depth, holistic, professional development need to be provided. It's not like that on one area a teacher to be get trained. If you ask me to holistic in service, we have to provide every topics need to be trained in a very systematic and consistent manner. If you ask me to pre-service teachers, integrated course need to be come up as India is working towards that, bringing the integrated teacher training programs. It may be at PG level, it may be at undergraduate level. Those programs need to be standardized, or it may be generalized across, so that each and every teacher must know about the education of children with various disabilities. It's not only a children with disability. If we ask inclusive education, this includes the diversity of the children. It may be a child with disability, it may be other special children. So every child, every teacher need to be know about that. If we have a integrated courses at pre-service, at any service level and pre-service level, that practice will help to overcome the challenges what we are facing currently. And collaborative learning environments is very much important to bring the inclusive environment and reduce the challenges. Yes, Sri.
Thank you, Dr. Shobha, for highlighting the critical challenges educators face in implementing inclusive education, and these the kind of the challenges that you have highlighted. Attitudinal barrier, insufficient training, inadequate resources, and there is need for the robust policy support. And your emphasis on the practices, that innovative practice that you have highlighted, in-depth holistic development, and there is need for collaboration, and there is need for pre-service teacher integrated course. And these are particularly provide us the insightful and resonate with our overarching goal to fostering the inclusive environment. Building on this discussion, I would like to invite Sonia to share her insight on what strategies you have found most effective in supporting teachers to embrace and implement inclusive practices in diverse classrooms in Kenya. Over to you, Sonia.
Thank you. So, just as Thais and Madam Dr. Shobha said, empowerment of teachers, there are various ways of empowering them. So in Kenya, those that I found most effective in supporting teachers to embrace and implement inclusive practices in diverse classrooms in Kenya are actually by design to implement those strategies. So we have to implement them. And that is where that support for the teachers is very important. So in Kenya, teachers are supported to implement inclusive practices in diverse classrooms through strategies which, as I said, are designed through implementation. So what is this implementation? First, we need to understand that in Kenya, the main difference between integrated learning and special needs learning is that our integrated schools teach learners with and without disabilities together with special needs learners, while the special schools are dedicated to specific disabilities that have been identified. So we have what we call the VI schools, for example, for the visually impaired schools. So those are special needs schools. However, they have the choice of joining a special needs school or an integrated school near them that they're comfortable with. Now, the Ministry of Education collaborates with the non-government organizations and development partners to offer teachers with professional development, training programs, and courses. Teachers are then continuously also guided by local policymakers, teacher trainers, school administrators, curriculum development, and most importantly, our assessment authorities. So our authorities have made sure that we have assessments that are both for adapted curriculums and for the special needs curriculum, so that when the teachers are, when they're taking their learners through the curriculum, it's not just knowledge-based. It is actually a competency-based curriculum. So the assessments are also competency-based. So they're CBAs.
Okay.
Some of the strategies used by both our local and international schools, remember that Kenya is one of the most flexible education systems in the world. We embrace all curriculums, by the way, internationally as well. So the teachers use differentiated instruction and assessment, as I had specified, thematic learning, collaborative learning, peer tutoring, hybrid curriculums, which is something that's normally just reserved sort of to speak for, the European or the American systems. But in Kenya, we do have a hybrid system. We have research and project-based learning and classroom arrangements based on individual needs. So basically, those are the strategies that we use.
I am glad I'm smiling also by knowing the different strategies that have proven effective in supporting teachers in Kenya. And I think the panelists over here are also would like to connect with you very soon after this seminar. So your oversight and the importance of collaboration among various stakeholders in fostering education, building on this discussion or continuing on this discussion on collaboration, I would like to ask Nafiza. Nafiza, would you like to highlight any one strategy or one specific strategy that has empowered the teachers in Cameroon?
Okay, Doctor, thank you very much. Well, here in Cameroon, we all know that inclusive education is struggling to gain its ground. But so far, I would say the government is doing its best to empower teachers within the inclusive sector. We are now being recognized as specialists when it concerns learners with disabilities. Because before now, back in the days, most schools, they would not even admit a learner who has disabilities. But nowadays, you find persons with disabilities enrolling into school, having the right services. So I would say it is a plus in the sector of special needs education in Cameroon. The government is really doing its best. It's opening training centers that is in charge of training teachers who are to teach learners with disabilities. So I would really say that's something amazing, because now we are having more teachers coming up in this department. Before now, you find just one or two teachers in the domain of special needs education. But now we have young teachers like myself. You find teachers at the age of 19 who are into special needs education. So all thanks to the government of Cameroon. I really applaud them for that. And the trainings given at the various university institute are more of an empowering tool, and they are building up inclusive education very well in Cameroon. Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you, Nafisa, for highlighting that the government of Cameroon is working best, and they are like the youngest candidate like you are also getting hired, and there are various opportunities like you candidates. So moving further, let's like we are about to end of this webinar. So last question to be like, what is one takeaway that you would like to say that audience would take from it? So moving further, so may I ask Dr. Shobha?
Yes, Dr. Ripi. So since
beginning,
is it audible?
Yes. Can you share that one key takeaway for our audience regarding the empowerment of teachers in inclusive education?
Definitely. At the beginning of the session, I was emphasizing on holistic professional development. The same statement I wanted to hold it on. It is important. Like a professional development to be taken care in terms of inclusive education. So every professional who are involved in providing the education, they should have a professional development towards inclusive education in various aspects of training. It may be either in-service training, or it may be a pre-service training, or if you can go for any webinars or any seminars or any workshop, that should involve the professional development, where every professional should have a skill, knowledge, and attitude towards the education of children with disability. That brings the success of inclusive education. This is one of the takeaway from the beginning to end. I wanted everyone to consider it and give importance for this. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Shobha. Thais, what would be the one takeaway you would like to tell for the audience?
I'd like the audience to remember that teachers are both capable and crucial to the success of inclusive education. They need to be valued and recognized for their knowledge and pedagogical strategies in teaching all students, whether they have disabilities or not. The continuous and the base education for teachers, the education that they go before the university to become teachers, it should focus on pedagogical practice, on accessibility resources, on assistive technologies, and the universal designs for learning. It's essential to recognize that they are in schools, that are educational spaces, and that they have this expertise. That's it.
Thank you. Sonia, over to you.
Yes, thank you. I think the one thing I would love to share with the audience, and I'm hoping most of them are teachers, is that first and foremost, you are as Thais said, you're the most important aspect of education. Most important, right? And with that comes challenges. A lot of the times you find teachers burn out really fast. And I'd like to share this because a lot of the times when I'm training, I find the teachers, rekindling that spirit that they had when they started. And down that journey somewhere, they lost it. Don't lose it. Your light is so important to those children because you're the candle that's going to help them light up theirs. So that is the one thing I would really like to share with the audience. The other thing being that empowerment is not a war. We can't fight it and we can't fight for it. We have to embrace it. We have to be flexible. We have to be reasonable. A lot of the times teachers say, we don't have this, technology, or we don't have this device. We know it's a challenge. We understand. But I think when we have such forums, we should take, advantage of it, as Dr. Shobha had explained. This is where you get to network. Teachers also need to network. And lastly, I think, I know there's one, but I'm sorry, I'm quite passionate about this one, is that mental health of the teachers is so important.
Yes.
If you're burnt out, say it, take a break. It's okay. I think those are the three things that I'd really, really like to share. Thank you.
Thank you, Sonia. Nafisa?
Okay, one message I would like the audience to take back home is that let's not relent our effort in empowering teachers who are handling our learners with disabilities. We should know that once we empower these teachers, we are giving them the chance to provide these learners with the right opportunities. We all know that when learners with disabilities are given the right opportunities, they are going to excel very well. So let's invest in teachers. Empowering teachers is very crucial, just like the others have said. It is very important in our local context, especially here in Cameroon. Once we empower these teachers, we are exposing our learners with disabilities to greater achievement. We are giving them the chance to grow to their full potentials. So this is one most important thing I would say. Let's trust the teachers. Let's help them grow and let's help them gain that professional development in the area of handling learners with disabilities. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all for your thoughtful contribution. And while this one takeaway, I just wind up in that way, that what the things that audience would take us from this discussion. The first one is the professional development. That is very, very important for the teachers, and that highlighted by Dr. Shobha. Secondly, Thais mentioned that every teacher must be valued and recognized for their efforts and for their pedagogical, for their knowledge as well as their pedagogical techniques. Sonia highlighted that teachers are the light, and that I really like that line. You are the light, and the light for, and it is important for the children with disabilities. Fourth, networking, she has mentioned, and she has also mentioned that mental health issues is also very, very important, and it is very important for the teacher to take breaks and move ahead. And Nafisa mentioned that space must be given to the teacher, let them grow, and they should be given that space to grow. So thank you everyone. By this discussion, we know that to have that inclusive environment or to create inclusive educational environment, we need to empower our teachers. That is very, very important, where all students can thrive. So now I hope that we are on the time and we have not taken much time. Do we have time, Jamie?
Yes, indeed, you do. Please, if you have more content
So
to dialogue, please do.
Yeah, I just want to ask my panelists only if they want to ask anything, anybody, like from each other. So that will be having a great interaction with them. Otherwise, if we don't have time, and we are looking
we
forward
do.
to this collaboration further after this webinar. It is not an end. It is just the beginning of the show.
No,
Of the journey.
You've got 15 minutes, so please carry on.
Okay. Okay, I'll open this floor to all the panelists if they want to ask anything or want. Yes, Dr. Shobha.
I wanted to ask other panelists how teacher training program is happening in their own country in terms of inclusive education. Are there any specialized course for the teachers, or general teacher course is focusing on inclusive education? I just wanted to know from everyone. If I start with Sona.
Dr. Shobha, you have asked this question to whom? Thais Martin, Sonia, or Nafisa?
Yes.
Okay,
yes,
Thais.
Yes.
Yes, Thais Martin. Yeah.
Okay, if I didn't understand correctly, you let me know, okay? But here in Brazil, there is a postgraduate program on AEE, the specialized service that I was talking about. So a teacher has the pedagogical or licentiature degree, and then as a post degree, they can go to the school to post-graduation on AEE, and they become teachers of the AEE, which is the service I talked about that goes on the other shift of the mainstream school. But also there is a national program on continuing education for all teachers on inclusive education. And this is more of a general training on inclusive education, not focused on a lot of accessibility resources or assistive technology. It doesn't go that deep down, but it gives the teachers a bit of panorama of inclusive education. And also there are specialized training centers as the National Institute of the Deaf and the National Institute called Benjamin Constant, which is for teachers that want to be really, really specialized in a specific type of disability or resources or accessibility resources for those kinds of students. For example, for the deaf-blind, or for the deaf students, or for only blind students. And so there are these different strategies and different programs on the theme. Did I answer it? Did I miss something of the question?
Thank you.
Yes, Dr. Shobha, you would like to ask the same question to Sonia also? As she mentioned that I was very glad to know that they are having flexible education system that we don't have in Indian context. So Sonia, would you like to share that system? What kind of the system you are having? Is it based on person to person, children to children? Are the techniques are adopting in that way? Or it is the standardized structure that have been there?
Okay, thank you. Actually, as I had mentioned, in Kenya, our education system, if I may call it that way, is quite flexible in the sense that we have our own local curriculum. We just implemented a competency-based curriculum, and across the whole education sector, starting from kindergarten all the way till teacher training. So that is a CBC curriculum-based framework. It's called the BCEF. Now, with the other schools and some of those that are following the CBC curriculum, they have included digital learning because, by the way, in CBC, one of the competencies is digital learning. So it is a requirement. As I said, implementation is so important for us because by design, we have to succeed. We have to implement it. So digital learning being part of the competencies that we are, aiming for. The other curriculums have actually gone into hybrid, not just in terms of digital, context, but also borrowing from other curriculums, which I don't see in other countries. So most of the times, forgive me for using this as an example, most of the times I tell my teachers, you're using the curriculum like it is your, like it is your rule book. It's not your rule book. It is a guiding book. It guides you. So you don't have to follow everything in it, And I think one of the best things about our training in Kenya is that because we get trained from different parts of the world as well, our ministry makes sure that our curriculum developers, for example, go for international trainings. Our officers are always benchmarking. It is one of the main things that we do. And when we benchmark, we learn from them as well. So our training is actually very global in that context. For example, I'd mentioned to somebody, we're using Montessori principles in special needs schools and in integrated schools to help children learn, certain concepts that need to be hands-on, for example. We create our own learning and teaching, the other way around, teaching learning material. We create our own. So, and then the other thing is teachers are not just trained in-house. We also have an e-cloud, an education cloud, where all kinds of content is put in. Our radio programs have content. We have a dedicated TV, EduTV. I love that concept because every time I walk into a government office and I find it playing, I learn so much from it. So you see, the training is not limited to just a specific institution. It's everywhere. We're learning all around. I don't know. I hope that answers your question, Dr. Shobha.
Dr. Shobha, now I hope, Jamie, we have time. Yes, Dr. Shobha, yes.
Carry on. You can carry on. We've got a few minutes still.
Yeah.
This is very interesting conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Dr. Shobha.
Thank you for so detailed. Made us to understand. But I just want to know more on teachers training programs. As I was asking, like in India, I think we have a separate teacher training courses for different disability wise. Like as Thais was mentioning, there are teacher training courses for visual impairment, hearing impairment, like that. So how is the teacher training program in your country? Like, is it again inclusive teacher training program, or you have a specialized teacher training program? I just wanted to understand more on that.
Sonia, are you there?
Yes, Diwali is starting, so you can hear the firecrackers right at the back. Cut that out. Teacher training, when it comes to inclusive education, Dr. Shobha, I think, again, for me, it's very difficult to differentiate and say, or to just say they are generally, it's for everyone. So let me try explaining it like that. So our BCEF, the basic curriculum framework, more or less, because it has suggested learning experiences, it is already quite inclusive in its nature, because it can work with, you know, different abilities that are more mild, let me put it that way. So therefore adaptive curriculum, adaptive learning, adaptive assessments is possible, right?
Yes.
Now, most of the time, which is where consultants like myself come in, we come in, look at a school, look at what their needs are, what their teachers need to make it more inclusive. So we as consultants work with the school one-to-one. We provide them with the services, because obviously we have that experience. We're working with different organizations, so we're able to bring in that expertise. So most of the times, after the teachers have done their degree program, they go through a vigorous training in-house. Then they can choose to go into private school, or they may choose to register with the Teacher Service Commission. Whichever way, the school takes the responsibility of employing trainers, especially during school holidays. The teachers always have to come back 1 week before school opens, or have to stay back 1 week later to sacrifice their, you know, they have to sacrifice that. And then they're given an in-house training based on their needs. I hope I've answered you now.
Yes, yes. Thank you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Very enlightening discussion. Yes, over to
Right.
you now. Yes, Yami, it's over to you now.
Yes. Thank you very much. Panelists,
you.
wow, what a lovely conversation. I love the geographical diversity in this conversation. I mean, how often do you get a dialogue between Brazil, Cameroon, and India in such an enormously educational way? And it really illustrates, I think, you know, this great big planet of ours is so diverse. And it's very dangerous, really, to actually even compare sometimes, because very often you're not comparing apples with apples. And it's just simply not fair. And having said that, though, that doesn't mean that each initiative in each country isn't already very special and very interesting. I was fascinated by the differences in all of your approaches and in all of your experience. You know, I have some experience from the South African point of view, not just my own experience as a 50 years ago as a learner with a disability, but you know, in my advocacy work over the last 25 years, it's been very interesting watching us embrace or not our limited policy. I was very interested in the policy discussion. In South Africa, we have some policy, but we are not necessarily adherent to it all the time. And so which of course is makes a disservice to those extraordinary teachers who are making all the effort. And I love that point, is how special teachers are in this context, how much work they put in. My daughter is a primary school teacher in America at a Montessori school, and fully 30% of her youngsters, of her students, are neurodiverse. And so there has to be a great deal of extra augmentary learning from her part to keep up. And so I think that's really an important element in this, is how can we embrace this new paradigm more effectively and do justice to the effort and the initiative that is so often shown by teachers, by educators, by institutions. So congratulations, panel. That was a truly extraordinary contribution, and thank you for driving it.